So if you're open to these four things, then those breakthroughs will come much more naturally. That self-awareness doesn't actually exist unless you understand the way that other people perceive you.
8 years ago, I co-founded with Marshall Goldsmith the 100 Coaches community, which is over the course of 8 years become a flourishing community of 400 leaders, leadership thinkers, and leadership coaches. And
we were very excited to say hit the Wall Street Journal bestseller list this late last year.
When I visit a coach or hire a coach or talk to a coach, what should I expect, like, for them to tell me something I don't know about myself and my work?
We've discovered from the greatest leaders that we talk to that there's a new model of leadership that's emerging, which we call flourishing.
And something I would add is I think everything can really be a great metaphor for leadership if we allow it to be. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So sometimes it's about slowing down. You know, if you're driving in your car, you have to slow down in order to make the turn, right?
Well, at the end of the day, a leader without a follower is just a guy going for a walk.
So hey there, Monday Talkers. This is Daniel Tokati, your host, and today we dive into the unknown with two masters of unlocking hidden potential, Jacquelyn Lane and Scott Osman. Hi, guys.
Hey, good
Dan.
morning.
Amazing. So audiences and everyone out there, if you're ready to have your assumptions challenged, your curiosity ignited, your leadership lens forever altered, let's embark this journey. Let's call it Tell Me Something I Don't Know. This should be the starting point of our interview. So before we get started, before we dive into this treasure trove of wisdom, here's a little something from the heart. You know, every subscription, every like, every share means the world to us. It's not about numbers, it's about the incredible community we're building together. So if you haven't already, make sure to hit this subscribe button, drop a like, and share it with a friend. It's more than just a support. It's a journey that we're taking together to spread these great minds and even their greater stories. All right, team, let's get started. So first and foremost, let's start by saying who's Scott and who's Jacquelyn?
Let's
Let's
see.
start with you, Scott. Yeah.
Sure. Working backwards, 8 years ago, I co-founded with Marshall Goldsmith the 100 Coaches community, which is over the course of 8 years become a flourishing community of 400 leaders, leadership thinkers, and leadership coaches. And then 3 years ago, co-founded the 100 Coaches agency, sort of the world's most elite executive coaching agency with Jacquelyn. But before that, I had 25 years in brand and innovation strategy, helping reposition some of the world's greatest brands and corporations. And then before that, my first career, I was a fashion and portrait photographer. Spent 5 years in New York and then 5 years in Paris, taking
Photography,
pictures.
branding, and coaching. Wow.
Yeah, it's all the same thing, actually. What I do is I have the ability to see, capture, and reflect the fullness of people and corporations so that they can be flourishing.
Beautiful. Moving to you, Jacquelyn.
Yes. So I am someone who is a lifelong learner and explorer. And I'm also now working with Scott at the 100 Coaches agency, which we've been building for the last 3.5 years. And it's been an amazing journey. I'm the author with Scott and Marshall Goldsmith of Becoming Coachable, which we were very excited to say hit the Wall Street Journal bestseller list this late last year. And my background is actually a little bit different. I'm an engineer by training, so I come from a more technical way of thinking, but really, like with Scott, it all stems from the same place, which is desire for problem solving. But I have discovered about myself as I've gotten older, the problems I'm most interested in solving are people problems. I think people problems are some of the most complex, but also some of the most overlooked. So as a lover of people and a problem solver at heart, this is a pretty perfect career for me.
Beautiful. I can see the brilliant sync between you both, and I can see your challenge turning numbers into something like human side. Starting with you, Jacquelyn. ladies first. Let's say
Mhm.
coaching, beyond the obvious benefits, what hidden gem can coaching unlock for someone who might not consider coaching initially?
Yeah, I think the great power of coaching is that it helps us see another perspective. uh, you know, it's become, a bit of a realization for me that self-awareness doesn't actually exist unless you understand the way that other people perceive you. In fact, other people are a bit of a mirror to us, and a coach is one of the best and most loving mirrors. And so, again, if for us to understand how to be our best selves, to understand deeply who we are and the way we show up in the world, coaching is one of the most powerful tools that I know of.
Beautiful. Let's say, Scott, if you imagine you encounter a leader that is skeptical about coaching, what surprising insight could change their perspective?
Well, actually, I'll use the insight that I got for myself because I was, I didn't know anything about coaching 8 years ago, and then we created this community with Marshall, and now I'm surrounded by coaches. And for 5 years, I was talking to coaches about, and they were saying like, "I'll be happy to coach you," and I said, "Great. What should we work on?" They said, "I don't know. Tell me what you want to work on." And I kept saying like, my life is pretty good. I can't think of anything in particular that I want to work on. Um, and then I met a coach who said, that's a self-limiting belief, right? Thinking that your life is good the way it is limiting you to what you could be doing if you thought more expansively. So let's work on expanding your view of what's possible. And when he said it, it really resonated for me. It really sounded like something I could lean into. And then when we started to do it, I realized how powerful that was. That whatever we think is possible, whatever we say, this is my goal and this is what I think is possible, fundamentally limits us to the potential that we can achieve. And I think one of the great things that a coach can do for us is to look beyond our own self-limiting beliefs to expand our world and expand the possibilities.
Okay, going back to the main subject that's telling me something I don't know. When I visit a coach or hire a coach or talk to a coach, what should I expect, like, for them to tell me something I don't know about myself and my work?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Yeah. So a lot of times a coach is first trying to understand, to really see you fully. I think that's an important first step. Um, so they might be asking a lot of questions to start, but over time, as that trust and that relationship is built, it's natural for a coach to be one of those people who shares the very honest truth with you in a way that maybe very few people do or are able to in your life. And I think that's one of the most powerful things is that a coach is really focused first and foremost, if not only, on your success. They actually don't want anything else from you or for you. And so your commitment of candor and your commitment of leaning in and going through that process can really yield amazing results. We've seen things like jobs saved, marriages saved, companies turned around, navigating really challenging situations and relationships. And all of that is possible because a coach can help shed and illuminate light on a situation that was otherwise hidden.
Yeah, one of the
Uh,
interesting things about our process, we always recommend, the agency, we listen to what somebody is looking for in a coach, and then we recommend 3 coaches. And the 3 coaches we recommend are all different. And one of the things that's, I think, the most fascinating for us is um, each coach typically finds a different hidden gem in the person, something that that person didn't know. And it's this sort of magic combination of, the person is sharing with the potential coach who they are, what they're thinking, everything else. And the coach has their own particular lens on the world. And the combination of what you're saying and what they're hearing creates the possibility to unlock something that you didn't see before. Because I think in general, people are communicating even the things they don't know, they're communicating them subconsciously. And our coaches, great coaches, hear those things and they play them back, and people are like, wow, how did you know that? And the answer is because you just told me.
How do I trust the coach? I'm sensitive because I care about my information, my things, my beliefs. Okay, let's say I'm hesitant to be fully open with the coach. What unexpected vulnerability might actually lead to the most profound breakthroughs?
Sure. That's a great question, and a question we get asked a lot. Here at 100 Coaches Agency, you trust the coach because, of course, we're vetting the coach. We know that these are great people. They've all become our friends. Many of them we've known for 30 years, but even the more recent ones, we know we're in community with them. But if you didn't get a coach through a trusted agency like ours, it's really worth doing your homework to make sure that the coach is not just saying they're a good coach and saying they're who they are, but actually making sure they are who they are. And I think part of that is going to be start by just understanding the numbers behind the coach, how long they've been coaching, what their history was, do some reference checks, and even go to their LinkedIn page and see, are they who they say they are? And when that all adds up, then test the waters. You don't have to give your most deepest, darkest secrets right away. Test the waters and see how they respond in the first call. It's a chemistry call with them. Share some things that you're comfortable sharing and see how they respond to you. But I think,
Is it like it depends on how open I am and how good the results will be, or not necessarily?
yeah, the more open you are, the better the results will be. I think the goal in coaching is to find a coach that you trust so fully that you can be completely naked and transparent with them so that they can see everything and help you with anything.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to note that confidentiality is absolutely paramount in the coaching industry. And so you should talk, with any coach, you should talk about what their policy, what their standards are around confidentiality. And especially if there's something that feels sensitive, they will absolutely respect that. And it's really important to note that even in the case that a company has hired a coach to work with a specific executive, that coach should never share information back with the company. That confidentiality must be respected, or the relationship doesn't work.
Right.
Trust is of the
But
utmost.
I just want to say a coach is not a priest or a therapist.
Yeah.
So they are personally bound by confidentiality, but they haven't taken any oath. There's no law.
Yeah, exactly.
And so in particular, if a coach were ever subpoenaed, they would have no legal bearing to not reveal any information. So I wouldn't share issues of ethics and things like that with a coach unless you really had no alternative.
Okay, I remember when we were discussing before this in the pre-interview, and we were mentioning the Become Coachable book. And I'm directing this question to you, Scott. In your vast experience, and what unconventional leaders archetype is quietly emerging, and why should we pay attention to?
Oh, yeah. So I'm gonna pull up a copy of our book here I think it's obligatory. Yeah. There we go. So we wrote this book, Becoming Coachable. We actually began the journey of it just over a year ago. It was the fastest thing. It was amazing how it came together. And we wrote the book initially because we thought, there is no book out there that describes the coaching process. How do you get into coaching? Most importantly, there was no book out there that described how do you become coachable. And we know from these amazing coaches we work with that the most important part in any coaching equation, the coach is important, but how you show up to become coachable, to become coached is the most important part. No coach can help somebody who isn't willing to be coached. And we finished those two sections. We thought, wow, that was fast, job well done. And then we looked at the book, we said, but it's incomplete because there was something else that I think we were so compelled to say and write about, conversations that we had with Marshall. And we actually, the third part of the book is a reenactment of that conversation. But it's this idea that leadership is moving towards a new model of leadership. And I think also people grow as leaders differently. I think first people start in leadership thinking, I'm going to get more for myself. We call that the striving leader, as they're trying to, they get in a position of leadership, they extract value for themselves. And some people, people pleasers, we call them, are trying to extract value for others, gain benefit and favor and what have you. And then very often we have sort of this rising leader that understands that they're going to create more value for the company and for the shareholders. And because of that, they're going to get more value for themselves. So they're still really thinking about themselves. But we've discovered from the greatest leaders that we talk to that there's a new model of leadership that's emerging, which we call flourishing. And the flourishing leader is focused on creating more expansion for everybody. And they recognize that by creating a company that grows for the benefit of the employees, the customers, the shareholders, the planet, doing things that are good for everybody, that growth also benefits them. And if they're focused on the greater good, the greater growth, then they don't have to worry about whether or not they're getting enough, because that the growth that they get will serve them well also. The examples in the book sorry.
I'm sorry to cut you, but I'm curious to know more about the flourishing leadership, but the time won't allow us. So let's move to Jacquelyn and see, is there a seemingly outdated leadership model that, when reinterpreted, holds a surprising relevance for today's challenge?
I think we are seeing a lot of shifts in leadership, and in large part because of the interests and the demands of a younger generation. Millennials and Gen Z want something a little bit different from work, we're finding, and so leaders have to be able to adapt to some of those models. And so, more traditional command and control leadership, is changing quite a bit. And we're seeing people become a lot more open to hearing from their people, with social media and other public platforms. There's a lot of information that's being shared publicly, and employees are not afraid to say what they're hoping for, what they're wanting. And so we are starting to see leaders make shifts, become more conscious and aware of that, to really embrace the fact that the future of their company depends upon having a healthy, balanced workforce. And so, it's been a really interesting thing to observe people make that jump from a rising leadership to really that flourishing model. And we think those are going to be some of the most successful companies over time.
Yeah.
I'd love to dig more into this. Like, what's a surprising factor contributing to some leaders' flourishing success that most wouldn't readily guess as a result of coaching?
Yeah. The story of Hubert Joly at Best Buy is such a great story for this, because here the entire sector was collapsing. I think some Circuit City had already collapsed. And Hubert Joly is this rock star CEO, former McKinsey consultant, always the smartest guy in the room, comes in to save Best Buy, coached by Marshall Goldsmith. And he gets to Best Buy and he surveys the landscape, and he realizes in very short order that he actually doesn't have the answer to solving the problem of Best Buy. That no matter how smart he is, he just can't do it. And through his coaching, he identifies that the answer lies with the employees. And so he goes out into the field and he visits stores and he says to the employees, "My name is Hubert Joly. I'm the CEO of Best Buy, and I need help. I need you to tell me what the problem is and what we can do to solve the problem." And it turns out they had the answer, and he implemented the answer. And during his time at Best Buy, it outperformed the market by 3 times. And that he resurrected the company, and the company is now thriving. And he had a personal transformation from being the kind of leader that had to always have the answers to being the kind of leader who cared more about his people and understood that it's not about head count, he says, it's about heart count. And that the heartbeat of the people in my company is what drives our success.
The voice of the heart.
Yeah.
Well, that triggers a question. Like, let's imagine a leader on the verge of breakthrough. What unexpected obstacle might they have to overcome to fully unlock their potential?
Hmm. We write about this in our book. We think there
Oh,
are
nice.
4 steps that really help someone get to those breakthroughs and get the most from the people around them, the world around them, from their coaching relationship. It's really something that unlocks the most growth for all of us, and we call it our openness framework. So if you're open to these 4 things, then those breakthroughs will come much more naturally. So it's first being open to change. This might seem obvious, yet some of us, I think, are hesitant or resistant to change in ways that we may not be fully aware. And so sometimes just exploring, am I open to change, to new ways of doing things? The second, of course, is being open to receiving feedback, as we talked about with Uber, who was hearing feedback from frontline employees or other people around you. That feedback is really important to, again, to become aware. And the third thing is then being open to taking action on what you hear. And then finally is being open to being held accountable for that. And that is a really beautiful virtuous cycle that helps us constantly progress and improve.
Beautiful. So I would love to leave the audience with something to ponder. So what's a seemingly ordinary object or experience that holds profound leadership lessons we wouldn't expect?
You know, I think that you know, we all have questions. We all come up to obstacles, and we think we have to have the answer for the obstacle. And my experience has been in watching all of our amazing coaches do their work. The answer to the question may often be held by somebody else, right? And that you need somebody else, a coach, a mentor, a coworker, to help you unlock problems. And in fully embracing the idea that you don't have to do anything alone, could be a very powerful way to understand what's possible, both as a leader, but also whatever level in the organization you're at.
And something I would add is I think everything can really be a great metaphor for leadership if we allow it to be. I think nature, even as an example, if you're looking at the way that a river moves or the way that day turns into night or seasons cycle through, there's all sorts of different beautiful leadership lessons if only we're willing to sit and to listen. And I actually love some of Scott's explorations on these topics in his weekly newsletter that goes out on LinkedIn, where Scott talks about some of his own lived experiences and realizations and how all of those things can teach us about leadership in life.
Lovely, lovely. Can we share a piece of unconventional wisdom that, once embraced, could spark a transformation journey for any leader, regardless their background or their industry?
Mm-hmm.
I think one that comes to mind immediately is sometimes the saying goes, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So sometimes it's about slowing down. If you're driving in your car, you have to slow down in order to make the turn, right? You can't just make the turn. It's actually not as fast nor as efficient. And for leaders who are used to running into things head first, and they just charge forward. I know that that's a natural instinct for many. But especially in times where you have decisions that need to be made or changes that are going on, sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is just take it a little bit slower.
That's a great one. I'm gonna draw from Marshall's rich library. Marshall calls feedback feed forward. And he says it's important to recognize that anytime somebody's willing to share anything about you with you, it's a gift. Because whenever somebody shares feed forward, feedback, whatever, they're telling you something about you that you don't know, from their perspective. And whether it's a positive thing or a negative thing, it actually doesn't matter. And the response to any kind of feedback that you get should always be thank you, because that's what you say when you get a gift. And he recommends, like, don't argue and don't praise it. I think for me, the unexpected part of that is don't even praise it, because you want to accept everything neutrally. If you praise it, then the next time, if you don't praise it, the person thinks that you didn't like that information. And I think for any leader, for anybody in the organization, the more honest input you get on how you're doing or what you could do better, the more successful you'll be.
Have you ever encountered some mindset like your advice would be, you have to change it all? Like you're doing this thing, but the right thing is to be done this way. Or how do you face such a challenge to convince someone to change their whole mindset about it
Yeah,
as a
I think
coach?
I think an important distinction here is that when you receive feedback or receive any of this information, the right answer is thank you, but you don't actually have to commit to doing it. You can't do everything, right? We all have to choose. And as Marshall often reminds us, one thing at a time.
Yeah.
It's hard to change multiple things, but it's hard enough to even just change one thing. So pick one thing at a time. So you might be getting lots of feedback, but I have a feeling that one thing will stand out.
Yeah, and we're also a big fan of the concept of trim tab. Trim tab is on the back of a big boat. The boat is so big that the rudder itself has too much pressure on it to turn the boat. So there's a little tiny rudder on the back of the bigger rudder that initiates the turn. And that little initiation of the turn is enough to get the big boat starting to turn. And once it starts to turn, then you can use the larger rudder to really fulfill the turn. And I think that's true, especially for major changes that we see in ourselves, is rather than trying to make a major change all at once, you find a way to trim tab the initiation of the change and start small and make that change, and then the rest of the change can follow.
Oh, interesting. I would love to leave the mic with you for any last message before we wrap up and ask for your advice. I mean, it's your call.
Well, I think the journey is never really over. Part of the reason we chose the word becoming in the title of our book, Becoming Coachable, is because we are always on that journey of becoming our fullest and best selves. And so as long as you are on the path, you are also on that journey. So keep going.
Yeah, I kind of lean into the idea of flourishing. We really, we as a company about a year and a half ago decided that efficiency was not going to be our model, that relationships were going to be our model, and that we really wanted to put relationships ahead of everything. And that has changed everything about the way we operate. I think it's made us dramatically more successful. Of course, we have the kind of company that relationships are so important. But we think that all great leaders, well, at the end of the day, a leader without a follower is just a guy going for a walk. So all leaders depend on relationships to be leaders, right? A great leader, the bigger leader you become, the less functional work you actually do. And so really understanding that relationships are the most important part of leadership would be the thing that I would leave people with, and really the focus that I think should be everybody's life is how to have great relationships.
Okay, the most general weapon. It's like, where can our audience connect with you and learn more about your work and stay updated with Become Coachable book?
Sure. Well, becomingcoachable.com is where to find out about our book. You can go to agency.100coaches.com and find out more about the 100 Coaches Agency. I guess that's also 100 Coaches, 100coachesagency.com. Sort of simpler URL. As Jacquelyn mentioned, you can, like you, Danielle, I love subscribers and people who follow my newsletter, which really is, I guess it is my sort of personal walk through life. Every week there's something that strikes me that I that I see is happening in the world, and I apply it through my lens and turn into some sort of, I guess, nominal leadership lesson or something that I can learn about the world and then share it through the newsletter.
Yeah. Feel free to follow us.
Right. And Jacquelyn also on LinkedIn. Jacquelyn's got a beautiful LinkedIn profile and
Hey, I'm LinkedIn geek.
very good at responding.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, exactly right.
Amazing. Cool. So we will provide link for the Coachable website, and we will provide link for Jacquelyn profile on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Great.
Amazing. Amazing. So thank you, Jacquelyn and Scott, for sharing really valuable insights and wisdom with us today. And it's been a pleasure having you both on my Monday Talks. We look forward to seeing you in our audience, see the audience also apply these transformation principles in their lives. If they have questions, you audience, you have the links, and they're always there to support us all. So to all of you, our viewers, remember to follow, like, and subscribe to Monday Talks for more insightful conversation like this one. Until next time, stay empowered. Take care. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.